join us on stage. We are now proceeding with our keynote speakers. I would like to invite Mr. Ahmed Rashid, who is a journalist and a political analyst of repute. Ahmed Rashid's books on Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Central Asia have attained bestseller status. His book, Descent into Chaos, United States and the Failure of Nation Building in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Central Asia, has been translated in over 40 languages. It's my pleasure and honor to call Mr. Ahmed Rashid. A big round of applause, please.
Well, thank you very much. It's Ameena, Asif, thank you so much for inviting me and for holding a very successful literary festival for 3 days in this wonderful location. It's taken 70 years for a Pakistani literature in English to develop. When Pakistan emerged, there were just a handful of novelists in the early decades. And then, for many years, there were just five, the famous five, I call them: Mohsin Hamid, Muhammad Hanif, Kamila Shamsi, Nadeem Aslam, and Daniel Mohyuddin. They really set fire to fiction and non-fiction in Pakistan, and they have done a great service. Even though, or you may find this surprising, that all their first books were written abroad, not in Pakistan. But it was their awareness in the post-Zia era of the flourishing at home of civil society, a new media, NGOs, and the recognition of the need for human rights that helped them gather ideas to write about. Yet only in the past few years have we seen a real flowering of novels in English, and the empty pages of that wonderful compendium of Pakistani literature compiled by Munir Shamsi is now getting filled up very fast. Every day we see new novelists appearing. I've been surprised. I work closely with the Lahore Literary Festival, and I discovered 4 novelists in here at this festival who I had not even heard of before. We have learned painfully that literature is influenced not by government policies, but by developments in civil society. How ordinary people change the social landscape around them, how they improve it. However, what we are witnessing is a failure of civil society as the state institutions attempt to force-feed us into a single narrative to describe Pakistan today. We are being pushed to create a single monolithic culture which defines the state and abandons the creativity and differences that motivate a true society. No country can prosper without the pillars of civil society, which include flourishing NGOs, a fair and equitable educational system, respect for human rights, especially for women and children, and a flourishing media. Yet we are being force-fed to create a single narrative in which, for example, India is a permanent enemy, America is conspiring against us, liberal values have no place in a so-called Islamic culture. This is not the Pakistan that I grew up in. This is not the Pakistan that many of you grew up in. We live in a democratic setup, but democracy is abandoned for authoritarianism. Let's take the media. There are dozens of TV channels and newspapers, but the media is running scared right now of the authoritarian deep state and its single-minded obsession to control and dictate the news and the facts. Large parts of Pakistan are no longer covered by the media because they're not allowed to be. That includes Balochistan, includes Fatah, and it even includes parts of Karachi. Which are no longer covered, where we don't get good news stories, political stories, as to what is happening in these areas. The press is under siege and journalists are scared. The travails of Dawn and the Geo Group are well known. Dawn is your city's newspaper. It's also the paper of record for all Pakistanis. But there is, unfortunately, a very sad and a minimal appreciation that this paper and other newspapers are fighting a struggle to survive right now. This is a sad appreciation of the paper founded by Quaid-e-Azam. The plight of NGOs is just as bad. NGOs do good work in areas which the state does not effectively reach. But instead of becoming a partner in such work, the state has put many local NGOs under surveillance. 18 international NGOs have been thrown out of Pakistan in the past few months, with no reason given, rendering some 12,000 Pakistanis jobless, educated Pakistanis, and millions of dollars lost, and many areas where NGOs work with poor people affected. There was no reason given for their expulsion. There will be more such expulsions in the days to come. And local NGOs are facing a much more stronger threat. NGOs are a vital part of civil society. I don't need to stress the plight of education, which many of you know well in great detail. Despite the heroic attempts of the private sector to set up more schools, we still have the highest rate of illiteracy in South Asia. I think this is something we should remember in a literary, in a literary conference like this, where those lucky enough to be able to read books are able to and can buy books are in a fortunate position. 2.5 million children in Pakistan cannot read and cannot benefit from events like this. The tragedy has been the failure of the educated middle class in Pakistan to stand up for civil society, to get involved in upholding basic human rights and demanding a better social system, and one that is obsessed with not pushing a single narrative down our throats and insisting that there's only one truth. Pakistani literature in English plays a vital and important role in the way we see the country and the world, and how we are judged and how we judge others. Our literature is vitally connected to civic demands and civil society. It is time now that the public, the readers, get more involved in improving the quality of people's lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rashid. I would like to call Ms. Aliya Imam to the stage, please. Please join us.